Hey everybody, this is Jim, the Tabletop Engineer, and welcome to a new video. This is not a crafting video, but this is a video that I've been wanting to do for a few months now. It involves some paints that I've been using, and not just one brand of paints, but two different brands. And I wanted to talk about my experience with these paints, but also share with you some pictures of what I've done with them. This is not a paid advertisement or a paid sponsorship. I bought both of these sets of paints with my own money. I bought them for various reasons based on people telling me, these are good or you'll like these. But what I'm going to give here is my honest assessment, and I'm not receiving any money, or I didn't receive any free products for these reviews. So let me tell you what I'm going to be reviewing. I'm going to be talking to you about the Army Painter Speedpaints, which if you paint a lot of minis, or even if you're just in this hobby and you occasionally paint a mini, you may have heard about the Speedpaints. They've been out for, I don't know, maybe a month or two. Kind of hard to find. They sold out initially, and then they came back, and now they're selling fast again. So could be a little tricky to find. And the other brand of paints I'm going to share with you are called these Pro Acryl, and they're from a company called Monument Hobbies. And I'll put a link to this and the Army Painter stuff in the video description below. But first thing you need to understand is the Pro Acrylic are it is a standard miniature type paint that you do your base coat, or you can do your detail work, but it doesn't involve, the paints are just that. They're just paints. No wash, no inks, no glazes, nothing like that. Paint, right? The speed paint are advertised, and I'm quoting from the box, base, shadow, and highlight in one. So I'm going to first go over this paint before I talk about the Army Painters. One of the things, I listen a lot to what people, one of the best ways to find something that works for you or is a good quality is to listen to what others are saying. I am not locked into one particular paint company. In my paints, I have Vallejo, I have Citadel, I have Army Painter, I have, I have a lot of different paints. And so now I can add these Pro Acrylic. I bought these at Coastal Con back in February. Was it in February? It was in February. I bought them from a friend of mine. His name's Alan. He owns a gaming company here just outside of Atlanta called Discover Games, and I'll put a link to that below. Alan did not, give these to me. He was selling them there, and people were talking about them. Not just Alan, but people who were at Coastal Con who had used the paints. One of them is Mac McClellan of the Indie Invasion podcast, who's also runs Coastal Con. He could not stop raving about these paints. So I had heard quite good things about them, and one of the things you need to understand is these small bottles like this, and I can't remember where my other one is. They come with, I forget how many fluid ounces. I probably should have looked that up before I started this video. I'm going to see what I can get here. This is 18 milliliters. 18 milliliters. And that's pretty typical of the Army Painter size bottle. I think the Vallejo are about the same size. This one right here is 22 milliliters. So 18 versus 22. You get 4 additional milliliters. It's hard to tell, but they do weigh more. This one weighs a little bit more. They're light, but it's enough paint in here that you can tell that you're getting more paint in this dropper style bottle. And one other thing, these are true dropper style, okay? You take the lid off, you squeeze it, and you get out a drop. This is a dropper style, but it's the twist kind. You twist it, the lid does not come off, and you apply the paint. One tip that Alan and Mac both told me is that when you close the bottle, you're going to get a a nice drop of paint on the tip here. I've used just that amount to do one mini. Like, you know, if you're going to paint 3 or 4 minis and you want to have red, just that small amount for me has been able to like do a detail on a miniature. So don't waste that little drop of paint that you get on the end there. These come in different sets. I want to say that I bought a 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. I bought a 24 pack. That's right, I did. A 24 pack. I don't remember the cost, and I apologize. And then in addition to those 24, I bought a gold and a silver metallic. They do make metallics. Now, why did I buy these? Because the people that were there, and it wasn't just Mac and Allen, there were a few others, the people that I have spoken to about these paints have all told me the colors are solid. Like when you apply one coat, it's typically, not always, but most of the time, that's all you need. So I put it to the test, and I painted 2 miniatures. Now, again, I'm not a professional painter, so don't hold me up to any any high standards here, but I painted these 2 robots. These are big, heavy metal robots. This one was painted pretty much all red to begin with. This one was painted mostly purple. Now, there are washes applied to these, but prior to the wash, I only put 1 coat of red on this, and I put 1 coat of purple on this. And that's a big deal, because those of you who paint miniatures like me, one of the things is sometimes we just get tired of painting. Painting can be tiring. Some people find it relaxing. Some people just want to get it painted and on the table. And you know, if you have to put a second coat or even a third coat on, it just adds to the time. Not only that, but you have to let the paint dry and then paint the next coat and let it dry. And what I found with these paints was that the people were correct. With at least these 2 minis, it was 1 coat. And it was a very vibrant color. The red, which I'm not sure is going to show up here. Yeah, it does. The red in person is red. I mean, this is called red. There's no blood red, scarlet red, savage red. It's red. And most of the colors are just that. Green. Let's see. Sky blue. There's a variation. Yellow. So, by the way, the yellow and orange, these are typically the colors that I find you have to do more than 1 coat. But guess what? No, you don't. I actually painted, and I can't remember what it is. I used the yellow for some detail work, and I didn't have to go back over it after it initially dried. Those of you who paint with yellows a lot or just are experienced with it, you know that oftentimes when you put the yellow on, it'll look solid at first, but then as it dries, you'll see whatever base coat or color underneath it comes through, and then you have to hit it with another one. This one, I did not have to do that. Now, that said, they do tell you to shake these things really well. I cannot recall if they come with an agitator ball in it. I don't think they do. I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the video, just in the comments below. But they don't come with an agitator, but you really want to shake these things well. And once you do, when you squeeze it out, you will see immediately when it squeezes out that it is a consistent pigment. Is that the right word? Again, I'm not professional here. I don't know the terminology that a lot of the pros use when they discuss the differences between paints and qualities and things like that. But what I can tell you is that I've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 of the 24, no, 12, including black. 12 of the colors out of 24 so far, I've used them, and I was quite impressed. The blue is as vivid a blue as you can get. The dark blue was also very vivid, wherever it was. Yeah, this one was really nice. The yellows, this one was one of my favorite colors, Jade. It's sort of a greenish blue. I cannot recall what I painted with this, but I used it, and I loved the color. It's this green blue, and it just looks great. The purple, which I did on that one robot, it's a light purple, but when it dried, it actually darkened just a little bit. So I was kind of surprised at that. I was thinking I was going to get that color, which doesn't really show up on the video all that well, but it was a little bit darker, and it could be because I primed these in gray, not white. I don't know. I gave them an initial priming color of gray. Usually I use white as the undercolor, but I was painting this one at CoastalCon, and I did not have I didn't have white primer or base coat, so I used a gray to prime it. So these colors again are called Pro Acryl, and this is not meant to be a lengthy review. I just want to let you know that I'm impressed. These are really good paints. I've got them in a box here. They're tall. They're taller than your typical bottle. And so when I figured out these things were tipping over, I made a lid here that goes over it, and it keeps them from tipping over. It also protects them from drops and things like that. But quite impressed. And again, you can check the video description below for a link to Monument Hobbies where you can get some of these. But I'm also going to put a link to Discover Games, because my friend Alan Barton, who I'm getting no kickback here, I'm not getting a percentage or anything, he sells all of their paints. And when I say all, remember I bought a 24 pack of certain it was they had 3 boxes, or at least he had 3 different boxes there of different colors, and each one had like I think mine was just called like basic colors or something, and then there was a second box that had more natural colors, I want to say, yellows, oranges, browns, those kind of things, and then there was another one that had a total mix of different. But so if you want all their range of paint, you can buy them individually. Alan does sell them individually. He had a big display stand there with all the different paints, which I was quite happy to know, because sometimes when you buy paints like in a box, when you run out of one, it could be hard to find unless you have a big hobby store that carries a lot of paints. It can be hard to find that one you ran out of. But I know now that Alan sells the individual paints as well as the collector or the collections of paints. So again, I'll put Alan's Discover Games link in the description below. Now, before I get on to the speed paints, I do want to tell you, both of these models, and I'm estimating here, but I'm pretty good at estimating. This one right here, I painted all in all in about an hour. It may have been an hour and a half because I did take a small break and then come back to it. But this one has a base coat. Then it has detail colors like the blue and the silver and the yellow. That's where the yellow is. It was on. I knew I did something. The yellow is this little orb inside the gun there, and that was just a one coat thing. And then after it dried, I gave it a dark tone wash, which is an Army Painter wash. And then I gave it a glaze, which was a Vallejo matte finish glaze to protect the paint. By the time I was done with this, I probably put about an hour and a half, maybe even close to, not 2. Let's just say an hour and a half on this one. Now this one I timed. This one I came home, and because this one was done, I was real anxious to get this one painted. So I came home and I used just these paints that I just showed you, the Pro Acryls. And I painted this guy, and it took me an hour and 10 minutes. I sat down and I timed it. And that hour and 10 is base colors, detail colors, the dark wash, which I basically put over everything, and then the painting the base gray, and then doing the matte finish or the matte varnish to protect the paint. It was right at about an hour, 10 minutes. So keep those times in mind. Hour 10, hour and a half. We could probably say an hour and a quarter, hour and 15 minutes for this one. Key takeaway is both of those took me over an hour each to paint. Okay, and I'm not a professional painter. The paint job here is not going to win any contests. So let's go to the speed paints. I've been looking forward to these for a while for a number of reasons. One, I have seen what people have done with the Citadel Paints. I forget the name brand. I just went blank on it. But they released their own version of these paints that you put one coat on and it darkens in it fills in the crevices and the cracks and it allows the detail to pop. And I liked what I was seeing. What I didn't like was the price And I've never, ever, ever been a big fan of the Citadel paint, the little drums or whatever bottles that they use, where you have to you shake it, then you pop the lid, and I just don't like them. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people love their paints, and they do have an amazing variety of shades and colors and stuff like that. And but I have maybe, out of all the paints I have maybe 6 or 7 Citadel pots. That's what they call them. I mainly have about 6 or 7 pots, and they are very unique colors. One of them is like a flesh color that I saw, and I was like, yeah, I want to have that, even though I've only used it a couple times. And then the others were pots that came with, like, one time I bought a Warhammer demo magazine, which has all this terrain and painted miniatures in it. It was just sort of a show-off magazine, and packaged with the magazine was, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 Citadel pots. So I added those to the collection. I think I've bought like 3 or 4 individually, and 2 of them I know are like a wash or a stain. I can't remember what maybe they're an ink or a wash. I'm not really sure. I rarely reach for them. I tell you this because I don't like the cost of them, and I don't like the pots. However, I do use a lot of Army Painter paints, and so they have released their Speedpaints in the same format, same size bottle. These come with an agitator little ball bearing inside, all of them. You can't hear it, maybe you can, but it's in there. You can feel it when you shake it. You can feel that ball hitting the sides of it. That was a nice little extra that Army Painter did. They didn't have to do that. Most paints that you buy, you don't get the agitator ball. You go buy a bag of them, or you order them on Amazon or wherever, and you drop a little one in there, and it helps, shake the paint and get it mixed good and well. They went ahead and did that for you. So that was thumbs up, Army Painter. That was a really, really nice little addition. Now, the first thing I noticed when I opened and started looking at these is almost all of them look like a wash. They're not thick like your normal acrylic paints. Like red paint, you look in the pot, you don't see a mix, you don't see liquid, you see red. With this one, you look in there and it looks, and believe it or not, this is yellow, but it looks red. See, but you can see the liquid mixing in there. It's very translucent. Let me show you another one. Let's see. Let me show you one I've used that. Sorry, let's see. Oh, like here is, well, that's not it. Let's see. Camo Cloak. This is a green, although it looks almost black. You cannot let the names fool you, and I learned that because I tested this yellow, and believe it or not, a white primed miniature, this will look yellow. It's interesting. I don't understand the chemistry, but I'm in awe about this kind of new paint technology. So, the first thing that surprised me was the translucent nature of these paints, because I was like, man, that looks like, that looks like a wash. Like if you put it on, it's just going to sort of stain it a little bit. But you got to trust the science that it's going to look that color when you apply it. And now one caveat, the instructions are that you prime the models white, and I suspect that's because it's with white as the background, that color is going to jump out. I think if I had primed these gray, or even, black would have been horrible. I don't think you would have even seen 80% of these colors. But like the yellow, for example, a black or a gray primed model, that yellow is going to be wasted. So you have to follow the instructions, which I believe tell you to prime your miniatures white. So that said, what I did was I decided to do a little test. I don't like to paint miniatures. I'm like a lot of you guys. I do and I don't. It's tiring, and I would much rather have the model painted and on the table, because I don't want to be painting. I want to be playing. Now, if you love the painting part and not so much the playing, or just love painting miniatures, you may find that this gives you the opportunity to paint more minis in a shorter amount of time. You may also find that it doesn't give you the variety of colors that a mix of different acrylic paints, not speed wash or speed paints, but just standard acrylic paints, you're probably going to find that there's just not that big a variety of color. Right now, I don't know what Army Painter's intention is in terms of new colors. At one of the gaming stores I frequent here in Atlanta, they have a display of Army Painter paints. It's taller than me, and it's probably about 2 feet wide, and it has most of the Army Painter standard acrylic paints. But then down towards the bottom, there is a middle section that sort of looks like it was designed as an add-in that has like the speed paints. And right now, you can. It looks. I'm making this up, but it's going on memory. I think you can maybe buy 10 or 12 speed paints by the individual bottle. That's all that was shown there in this display. It says speed paints, and it has some other information. And then there's like 12, maybe around 12 bottles that that you can buy individually. And then below that, they have the speed paints come in 2 boxes. They come in the mega set, which is what I have, and I'm trying to remember. I think it's 24. 2, 4, 6 times 4 is 24. 24 bottles in that box. And then they have the basic or beginner set or basic set, which comes with, I think, half of that, 12. So right now, as far as I know, the maximum number of colors that Army Painters is selling is the 24 in the mega set, and then out of those 12, I think those are some metallics, or there's some different ones there. So it looks like they maybe have about 35, 36 unique colors at this point. I could be wrong. Maybe my game store just doesn't have them all on display. But my hope is that Army Painter is that the success of this, and I believe it is successful, my hope is that they're going to introduce more colors for the speed paint. Because here's the thing. I will always reach for my standard acrylic paints, especially these new ones, when I am wanting to focus on one miniature, something that's not like going to be batch painted, that I want to focus on. I'm not saying I won't hit it with the speed paints for like the base coat, because in a moment I'm going to show you why I might do that. But there's something to be said for having the flexibility of the larger range of standard acrylics versus this smaller range of speed paints. But given what I just did with just the speed paints and a bottle of white standard acrylic, I'm going to tell you that right now. This is actually, that's not true. I also used the yellow. I used all these speed paints to paint some miniatures, and I used the yellow and the white to do some teeth and some eyes, like dot the eyes. That's the only time I reached for these. Everything else I'm about to show you was done with just the speed paints. Now, before I show you what I did with the speed paints, let me tell you the math. I told you that each one of these took over an hour and 30, hour and 15. I'm going to start picking up the models here. I timed myself. In 1 hour, I'm going to show you all of the miniatures I painted. And let me tell you, I am very pleased with how they turned out. So, 1, 2, 3. These are all the same. 1, 2, and 3. Got 3 of those. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I painted 9 of these tentacles, okay, including the base, the rocks. That's 9. I'm up to 9. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I painted, now I'm up to 15 of these purple tentacled biter type monsters here. Then 12 of these spiders, this greenish color. 1, 2, 3. Well, I'm just going to grab them. 12 of these spiders for a total of 27 miniatures in 1 hour. Now, let me show you real quick. On the tentacle, the back was given a dark red. I forget let's see if I can find it. It was slaughter red, slaughter red for the back. And then on the inside was, or on the tentacled inner portion, was Fire Giant Orange. So just 2 colors or 2 speed paints. I did the base in gray, and then I gave it a dark wash. I forgot. I did use the Army Painter dark wash to hit all the gray stone with a stain, okay? So those are the 2 colors I did, and I did 6 of these. Now, you need to look at the detail. The paints do exactly what they say they're going to do. They coat the open areas with the color that you're looking at, and then they fill in the cracks and the creases here, the wrinkly skin, the holes of the puckers there. Look at that. I mean, it really, and in person, I was blown away. Blown away. Now, these are the ones I did first. I did the tentacles, and I did the red. And while the red was drying, and this stuff dried pretty quick, while the red was drying, I gave these 3 guys a total body coverage of the blue, and I used High Lord blue. And so all 3 of those were done in blue, and then I set those aside to dry. I did these 6 tentacled creatures. Let's see if I can give you some details. I mean, it's hard to tell, but the detail work, these are darker, so they're hard to see. But in a moment, when you see the spiders, you're going to be blown away. So I did all of this in a dark purple up to the tentacles. I didn't do the tentacles. I left them white. So I did all 6 of these in that purple, and it took me, I mean, I'm not slapping it on and wasting it, but because you're doing the entire body, I used a bigger brush head, and I think I painted each one of these probably in like 30 seconds, 40 seconds. It was not bad. I set those aside to dry. Then I tackled the 12 spiders, and I used this really it's called Plasmatic Bolt. It's a green. And these are my favorite. The spiders, look at the let's see if you can see the detail. The back of the spiders has this little skin that, yeah, you can see it there. The knuckles on the legs got filled in and darkened, but they're still green. I did the whole body on these, including the underside. I did the mouth. The mouth was green. I went back later and hit it with I'll explain what I did to the mouth in a minute. So I set those aside, and then I went back to the tentacles, did the orange, set those aside to let those dry, went to the blue guys who by this point had dried or were close to it, and I used a darker blue, and I think it was called, let's see, there was a dark blue, Cloudburst blue, which, and I could have these reversed, but I think that was it. And I did a dark patch on their back and head, because it's more of a rocky fur coating. The rest of the body is mostly fur, but this was sort of like a rocky coat. And I did this based on some pictures that I'd seen of these painted, which showed me that these 2 textures are supposed to be a different color. So I went with this darker blue and hit the shoulders and the head, and then I just dabbed on the fur in various places to give it this patchier dark look. I set those aside. I went back really fast with this light purple, well, it was called Purple Alchemy, and I did the horns, or they're tentacles actually, on all of these, and they blended with the purple, so it's not like you have this like line where it goes dark purple and then this color, because this was still it was dry, but it was still, I guess, damp. There was a blending that I was able to do to sort of make those purples and pinks go well together. I did those, and then when I looked at the spiders, they weren't completely dry yet, so I left them be. I went back and I painted with I forget which it is. There's a gray in here that I used. Sorry, I should have. Here it is. The runic gray was for the stonework on the tentacles, and those, by the way, the tentacles were the only ones that had the stonework. And then the others, I had already painted or primed the bases black and glued the miniatures on, so they were good to go. Okay, while the spiders were drying, I took the white. I mentioned to you that I used some other colors. I took the white acrylic, and I went and I hit his fingernails, his toes, and his teeth on all 3 of these, okay? And then while the white was open, I hit the teeth and the nails on these creatures. And really, it's just dab the white and just very fast. Didn't take any time at all. Then I got to the spiders and I used the orange wash, Fire Giant, to stain the green colored, I guess the little poison filled spikes on the head here. I hit them with orange that mixed with the green, and it gave it this sickly orange look. At this point, it was getting very close to the hour. I went back and I used a dark wash to just dab onto the gray to darken the gray here. I used the yellow to hit the eyes, the 2 yellow stalks. And again, these are one coat eyes. Let's see, did they turn out all? They all just a single dot. None of them are faded. They're all very vivid yellow. The inside of the mouth was purple on these, and I did realize that at the last. I was like, oh, the mouth inside. So I took a couple drops of black acrylic, and I just swirled it in the mouth to make the mouth nice and dark in there. And now, at this point, the spiders were dry. I flipped them over, and the mouth and teeth were totally green. So what I did was I flipped all the spiders onto their back. I took the dropper of dark, the dark tone wash, which is like black, and I put a single drop in the center of each mouth, and it sort of spread. It still coated the teeth, but it filled that mouth, which is sort of, you can't really tell in the picture here, but the mouth is sort of recessed. There's a lip that goes all the way around the lips of the creature, and I let that wash dry for like a minute or two. It was just a small, tiny amount, so it didn't take long. And then I took the white paint and just all the teeth. When I stopped, it was right at, I think it was like an hour and 2. Sorry, I went about 2 minutes over, but 1 hour to paint 27 miniatures. They don't have a wash on them, except for the mouth of the spiders. There was no wash given. The colors just darkened chemically inside the fur pattern, in the creases between the toes, inside the tentacles here, and on the skin. You can kind of see how it just darkened. That's not a wash. That is the paint getting down into those creases. It's like elephant skin. See that? And it just darkened the creases. And these right here are probably the least impressive, only because they're dark. The purple is dark. But when you see them in person, you're like, whoa, man! You run into something like this at night, you're toast. But it looks good. I mean, it's professional enough for me to put it on the table. But hands down, it was the spiders that just did it for me because of the detail on the back. See how the green got down in the back there, and it got down in the knuckles of the legs. And the color, the video just does not do this justice. In person, this green is, if you saw this on a tabletop or on the floor, you would stomp this thing 20 times. It looks alive. It looks so real. The shading and the color alone would make me stomp it. It just looks disgusting and scary, and I've got to be careful not to leave these lying around, because if my wife sees these, she would assume probably that this was real, and I'd be down 1 or 2 or 12 spider miniatures. So, long story short, the speed paints are awesome. They are amazing. I definitely plan on using them when I want to do batch type painting, where I'm doing one model, multiples of a particular model, where I can just jip, and by the time the paint dry, or by the time I get to the last one, the paint is dried and I can go back and start the new one. Here, what my judgment was is when I finished doing the red on the tentacles, they were still a bit wet. So I was like, well, let me see if I can, I'll do the 3 big ones. I figured, okay, I honestly didn't know how many I was going to be able to do in an hour. So I reached for the blue and I did these, and I finished those so fast. I was like, well, okay. And by that point, the red was sort of dry and I could have done the orange, but I was like, well, I looked at the clock and I'd been doing it for like 8 minutes. And I remember thinking, let's keep going. Let's do another set. So I did these. And when and these were fast because it was just that dark purple all over everything. And, you know, it's dark, but it was very easy. You could see where if you missed a spot, it was so easy to just dab, 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 and you were done. Then I got to the spider. Well, at that point, I was ready to stop. I was like, you know what? I don't want to push my luck because I was at like 20 or 25 minutes, maybe not that many. But I just didn't know, like, you know, the orange versus, I knew I wanted to do the multiple colors and the claws and the teeth on both sets. So I wasn't really sure, but I looked at the spiders and I was like, they're small. They're smaller than any of the other ones. And they're all going to be like the same color, the consistent green, except for the pinchers. I didn't even have to paint the mouth because technically when these sit on the table, you don't even see the mouth. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the spiders. It only took me like 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes max, to paint all 12 spiders with that plasmatic bolt. But because they were totally covered in that, and there were 12 of them, I guess I just, it was still wet, and it kept being wet. So I just used round robin on the other 3 types of miniatures until I saw that green was done, and then I went and finished them off. By the time I was done, I was blown away that I had done 27 miniatures in 1 hour. 1 hour. If I was a professional, maybe I could have done that in an hour with just standard acrylics. Probably not. If I wanted this level of shading and detail on 12 spiders using just standard acrylics, it probably would have taken me an hour to do all 12 because the acrylics seem to dry slower, and also I would have had to apply a wash to get it down in the skin and the knuckles and all that, and then of course to paint the mouth and the teeth. I got to think that the spiders alone would have probably taken me about an hour. I think these probably would have been the fastest using standard acrylic paints because, you know, you just paint the whole thing blue and then you go back and hit the little details with other colors that you want and then apply the wash. But again, painting and then adding the wash takes time, whereas the speed paints, you don't have to add that wash. You can, but you don't have to. It's built into that. It's called shadow, highlight. It's called base, shadow, and highlight in one. And that's honesty in advertising right there. So where do I go with this? Well, I can tell you, speed paints are an easy investment if you do a lot of painting, not at the professional level. If you just want to get miniatures painted and on the table and looking as good as you will spend the time to do it, these speed paints are incredible. I'm looking at these 27 models and I'm like, an hour. I think it's time for me to attack some of my other my other miniatures that have been sitting around unpainted. Now, that said, if I only had one of these and this was going to be sort of a showcase creature and maybe something that I was going to use in a lot of games and stuff like that, I might want to spend more time on it. Maybe I would use some different highlights or dry brush the fur with even an even lighter blue. I don't know. I don't know what I would do differently. All I can say is that I will happily use that on my table without any regrets. It looks perfect. I mean, it looks like something I would have painted in my normal daily painting or my normal routine of painting miniatures. It just didn't take as long. So, speed paints, highly recommend investing in either the basic set or the mega set. I hope Army Painter will continue to put out more variations of color so that you know, it's more than 2 or 3 types of blue and maybe more than 2 types of red. The Pro Acryls, I do not mean to steal any thunder from these paints. When it's time to reach for standard acrylic paints, especially if I'm doing a one-of-a-kind miniature, especially metals. I love spending time on metal miniatures and making sure they look exactly the way I want them. I'll be reaching for the acrylics. But I will still use these speed paints if there's a lot of surface area on a one-off miniature that I could just hit with one color real fast, let it dry, and then go back and dry brush and do some of the other things. I would have no problem mixing my speed paints with standard acrylics to get whatever effect I'm going for. So let's see. This video is now hitting, 40 minutes, and I really didn't mean to go that long, but I want to make sure you understand just how impressed I am with both of these paints. The Pro Acryls, just for sheer pigment density, I guess, the quality of the colors is just amazing that I only had to do 1 coat. With other paints, I often have to do 2 or even 3 coats before I'm happy with the consistency of the color across the miniature. So, as I understand it, the company that makes these are doing very well, because I think once miniature painters find these, they're giving them a chance, and they're figuring out that for base green, base yellow, base orange, base red, they are solid paints. Also, just the fact that it's so hard to find these speed paints, they sell out so fast, that alone should tell you that people are finding success with them, or they're spreading the word like I am, and other people are going and buying them. I hope you have success with both of these types of paints, whichever one you type of, if you decide to get one or both. I would love to hear your feedback on them. I, for one, am probably this weekend going to pull out some of my miniatures that are in multiples, and I'm going to use these speed paints to just knock some more out. I keep my miniatures displayed back here, and I build the miniature, I laser cut my miniature displays as I need them, and I'm about ready to I need another one. So I'll be cutting out a fantasy one this week. This is the Mega, which is 8 levels. I'm going to do another one of those, because right now these 27 will probably fill up 3 of those levels just right now. So anyway, all right. I would love to hear your feedback. If you're using either types of these paints, please do check the description below for links where you can buy the Pro Acryls, buy the Army Painter speed paints. If you want to do business with a small hobby store, give them your business versus, say, buying on Amazon, check out Discover Games in the description below. I want to throw Alan a huge thank you for talking these paints up to me, and it wasn't just a sell. He was legitimately telling me about the qualities, and I'm so glad I bought them. And I definitely am going to buy more. I definitely want more options for these colors. So that's all I have for this video. I hope this was of value to you. I will take some close-up pictures of the miniatures I've painted here and scatter them throughout this video so that you can see like the spiders and the tentacles and stuff like that. I definitely would like to invite you to come join me over at the Tabletop Engineer Facebook page, which is my Facebook group where I discuss, post photos, answer questions, ask questions, share what we're gaming, share what we're playing, all that good stuff. I also would invite you to come join us over at the Tabletop Crafters Guild Facebook page. We're over 40,000 members strong. It is a show and tell share place for crafting for our gaming hobby, and it's an incredible resource. You can ask questions, answer questions, and post your crafting. It's a show and tell, so you can show what you're doing. All right, that's all I have. This is Jim, the Tabletop Engineer. Thanks for joining me, and everybody, take care.